The Breakaway alliance of Sahel states comprising Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso has deepened its rift with the Economic Community of West African States by imposing a 0.5% import duty on goods from member nations. The move comes as the three countries seek to fund a new three-state union after exiting the larger regional economic bloc. The levy, agreed upon on Friday, takes effect immediately and will apply to all goods imported from outside the three nations, excluding humanitarian aid. The statement further noted that the tariff will be used to finance the activities of the bloc, though no specific details were provided. Oladipo Ajayi, head fixed income and forex Chapel Hill Denham, joins me for more on this. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on this morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Happy holidays anyway.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with, how did you react to that when you saw it? Did you see it coming?
Well, it's not unexpected because when you notice the way they actually unplugged from the ECOWAS bloc, of course you will know that we should expect more to actually come. That's more like the one of the steps, and I'm actually not surprised. But what is alarming is the fact that I wasn't expecting them to actually come in through that route, because imagine a country of such a country like Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, that's actually ascribed as one of the poorest nations in the world, actually coming in with more like a tariff battle. And I don't think they actually thought about it very well, because they need to look at what's going to be the impact on the people. Because one thing about tariff is that as much as the government wants to generate revenue, you should know that it's your people that will actually pay for such a tariff, because when anybody that's exporting any product to Niger, as we speak currently, you actually get your fund back directly. So whatever the charges is going to be on the importer. So at the end of the day, it's going to be more burden on the locals rather than the exporting nation. So I felt that it's not well thought out, because the impact will further impoverish the people of these countries.
All right, so how do you suggest they actually raise this money? Because they say they need to raise money so they can fund the economics, the security, and every other thing within that bloc.
Yeah, I agree that in such a time like this, when America is actually unplugging and actually pulling back on giving aid and grants to countries, and most countries will actually need to actually tighten their belts. And of course, it also affects Nigeria at a point when the president actually switched to action to quickly actually raise budget for about 4 billion for medications for HIV patients. In the same vein, they need to now look at a creative way to actually raise funds as we speak, because one of the reasons why people actually supported them was that fact that the countries within this bloc, they felt that they've been going through a lot of issues, economic issues, and when they came in, the view is that the messiahs are here. And when it's such a time where you are thinking the messiahs are here, and suddenly it now means that the cost of living will actually increase. Of course, it means that it will further dampen the confidence that these people are already having in their government. So I feel that they need to now look at a way to actually salvage the situation. Because when you look at the level of revenue that you generate for 0.5%, I feel is very, very marginal. The impact will be more than the level of revenue they're going to generate, because if you're looking at a tariff of like 10%, it makes a lot of sense, because you look at, definitely it will actually bring a lot of revenue to the government. But when you look at
that, it's actually their own citizens that are going to make the payments. Maybe this 0.5 makes sense at the end of the day.
Yeah, so it's their citizens that's going to make the payment, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And what it means is that the battle is not against the exporters. The battle is to the importer. So it means that the battle is around your people and not to people that are actually bringing goods to the country. And that is a bit different from what is being done by Donald Trump. What Donald Trump was trying to do is to actually attract investors to come into America, to come and set up that business rather than actually bringing the product into their client. And I think that is a great difference from what is happening in the US and what they are currently doing.
But is that really working for America? Because even in Canada, they started this Buy Canada movement, and we see a situation where retailers are saying that U.S. goods and products are being turned down, being shunned in Canada.
Of course, we don't agree with that policy. Everyone knows that in the long run, it's still going to backfire on America, and we're already seeing the impact. Even as at this morning, the bloc of Japan, Korea, and China, they're already coming together as one to actually start the tariff battle together. So at the end of the day, it's not going to be a very good one for the U.S. government. But however, the focus of the U.S. government actually towing that line is that they felt that America is becoming more like a dumping ground to most of these products. They are trying to actually encourage people to come and set up. And don't also forget that they're already getting traction in that regard. They're already seeing countries actually ready to actually toe that line. We have already seen investors are ready to actually move to actually set up business in America. And the end goal is to actually improve employment rate in America, and at the same time also to actually help to further develop America and actually increase the GDP of America. But the one that is being done by this bloc is, I feel that it is not so great for their people because, of course, the tariff is just marginal. That's just one of the things that we can say around it. But however, it will also have impact on their people.
But how sustainable is it? Because I want to believe that when you want to put out things like this, you ask yourself, what do you have within? I mean, looking at what they have within and what is to be imported. For example, what Nigeria exports to these countries, we export petroleum products, we export grains and some other things. Is it not going to have a grave impact on them? Another thing I'm looking at is, apart from the fact that their own citizens, their own importers are the ones who are going to bear the brunt, is it possible that maybe goods from these other countries will then cease to be imported by the importers because they don't want to pay the higher margin, looking at inflation and some other things, that they are having to grapple with over there?
If you check out some of the products that Nigeria exports to this country, they are necessities. Food products like grains, they are necessities. Petroleum products, they are necessities. What happened to Nigeria
recently when we had to
exactly.
take some shots to them?
Petroleum products, they are necessities. Electricity, necessity. So it is not something that you can say, we want to stop actually patronizing these countries. They are necessities, they are things that your country needs to actually grow. They are things that your country needs to actually survive. And that's one of the reasons why I said that the impact is going to be on the populace rather than the countries that are actually exporting to those countries. But my concern is just the fact that this one way or the other has actually disrupted the end goal of AfCFTA, where you are looking at to ensure that at least 90% of products actually are tariff-free. And at the same time, what this would also have affected is also that synergy that we want to enjoy in ECOWAS climb to ensure that trades can move easily at zero tariff and like that, just to actually help to actually develop African countries. And that's one of my concern around this, because who knows which other country will want to toe this line, because they're already seeing the handwriting on the wall. And that's one of the reasons why I feel that ECOWAS needs to quickly come around together and see where they actually can actually take them back to the table and make them see the full impact of this on the people.
Card negotiation?
Of course.
That will come.
One thing is that it's better for you to actually call them to the table so that in the long run, when they start seeing the impact on their people, they wouldn't have said that maybe they don't have a thought through of the process. But when you already brought them to the table, it simply means that you guys would have discussed about it, the pros and cons, and then if they, at the end of the day they still want to toe that line, they can actually go on that line. But the impact will be more on their people than other countries.
Reciprocity is also a tool in diplomacy. So do you see ECOWAS member states reciprocating?
Well, I don't think ECOWAS countries should actually do that, because what you have done is that you are further impoverishing your people as well. Because what I'm saying that, just imagine Nigeria saying, okay, whatever we are importing from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, we want to increase the tariff on that. What it will mean is that the cost of buying some of those products will actually go up. It's in the inflation of Nigeria that will actually that will suffer for that. So it doesn't make sense for you to actually toe that line. What Nigeria needs to just do is just to take chill pill around this thing, allow you to see how much it will pan out. Because my confidence is the fact that some of the products that we're actually exporting to this country, there's not things that you feel that, they have options. Of course, maybe they can actually go around. So exactly. Food is something that you need to actually live. Electricity is something that you need. Petroleum products is something that. So these are something they need to further develop their economy. So, and that's one of the reasons I'm actually not perturbed about this. And I guess, just like what you said, the focus is to actually raise funds to actually find a way to actually govern their economy. And like I mentioned, some of these grant aids that the American government is actually pulling from some of these African countries is currently having adverse effects on them. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why they're actually towing this line, by fact that it's not well taught. And that's
all right. So let's talk about, these aids that, Trump has pulled a plug on. How do you see African nations sort of coping or, dealing with this? We see Nigeria increase the budget, and we also see some other countries talk about, raising funds and all that. But how do you see Africa, going through this?
I think my view around this thing is that, and I will pull from what President Tinubu said at United Nations General Assembly in 2023 when he was talking about Africa. I said something very profound, that Africans are not beggars, that we have a lot of resources. We are just looking for investors to bring funds to help actually develop some of these things.
Is that what it is, really?
Yeah, and sincerely speaking, we have a lot of these resources.
Does it seem like the environment is conducive and convenient enough for investors to come in? Because even the investors we have are living in droves.
So one of the things that we need to now do as African nations is to propose policies that will be investor friendly. You understand me? So you don't want to attract investors, but yet you have hostile environment. You don't want to attract investors, then there's high level of insecurity in your economy. So these are some of the things that we also need to do, because we can't continue to actually live based on what comes from offshore, like a grant or a supply from offshore. We have a lot as African nation, and that's why one of the reasons why I supported AfCFTA for a great extent, because I feel that if we can actually develop and trade among ourselves, it will help to actually develop Africa. And don't forget that every product that you import into the African client, what you have done is you have exported employment. And that's one of the reasons why we feel that there's a high level of unemployment in Africa, because we keep importing. Have you thought about it, that we'll export crude products, and at the end of the day we'll bring in refined products into African clients? So it simply means that what we do, we just extract and send abroad. We don't want to add value. And the process of adding value, that's where you create the employment. And what you have done is that you actually extract, send abroad, and you get a refined product for you to actually consume here. So we need to go beyond just extracting and sending abroad.
So what's stopping us? What actually is stopping us? Because we have local content development board, and even this morning we're just talking in one of the news stories we read this morning, talking about how that goods should not be exported except with added value up to 30%. I mean, policies like that, at the end of the day, do they really change a thing? What do we need to do to move the needle? Because we have the policies.
So you say one thing about is another thing for you to have a policy is another thing for you to implement the policy. You can have a policy. And you know that there are a lot of laws that we don't actually implement, we don't apply in this country. So at the same time, we need to be deliberate. Just as the way we were deliberate to say we want to remove subsidy, we need to be deliberate to say that we need to add value to whatever is actually produced in this country before actually taking it offshore or taking it elsewhere. Because it's the process of adding value, that's when you have actually created employment and helped to actually develop the economy. So we can't continue in the way we've been doing things. We need to move beyond that. And that's one of the reasons why people like me were excited when Dangote refinery came up online. Because we felt that we can't continue to export crude oil. Why would you continue to actually extract crude oil and send abroad? Then at the end of the day, you go back to actually buying refined products and bring in. You can as well just create a refinery where you can add to a greater advantage now. We are now producing, we are now refining, and we are now selling offshore. And that is some of the things we need to replicate this across board. I love what is happening in the mining industry, but it's not the end of it. We need to create policies that will attract more investors to actually come into that space. We need to also educate people. We need to ensure that there's huge transparency in that industry so that it can attract foreign investors. And at the end of the day, we don't just produce, we had value before actually exporting some of these things offshore.
You know, I like that you mentioned the oil and gas sector. We know what's happening in the downstream. Even if you look at also the upstream, whether it's the drama between NNPCL, Dangote, and all of this. I mean, what do you make of all that? Number one, well, we heard in the news that there will be talks to solve the Naira for crude deal. But apart from that, I mean, we're seeing a situation where, apart from Dangote refinery, there are actually other refineries that are suffering from, you know, lack of feedstock. And even Dangote isn't getting as much as it needs from NNPCL. And there are those who are saying NNPCL is also a competitor in this game. And so NNPCL, nobody should blame NNPCL for deciding to sell its crude to certain people or to use it for one thing or the other. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to look at this issue from both sides.
Okay.
Firstly, I will look it from the side of Dangote, someone that actually has invested aggressively into Nigerian economy.
There are other
you understand? That's what I'm saying. You understand? And you are finding it very difficult to actually get supply. You understand? It becomes a problem. And also, when you look at it on the part of the NNPCL as well, don't forget that Nigeria is not the owner of the whole 1.5 million barrels that is produced on a daily basis. This is a JV. So let's assume a 50-50% JV. So it means that what belongs to Nigeria is about 750,000 barrels. Don't forget that they have obligations on that 750,000 barrels.
So we should exclude the 750 totally.
Because it doesn't, you know one thing, these IOCs, you understand, some of them already, because the way you work in our industry, you don't produce and say, I'm selling tomorrow. You already have obligations. You already have contract to deliver over a period of time. Because it's not something that you produce and you're saying, oh, we are the buyers. You already have buyers that you have had agreement with, that over a period of time that you need to deliver onto them. So that's why I don't want to go into what is happening with the IOCs. And at the same time, it will be very difficult for the government to prevail on the IOCs or mandate them. You have to use more like moral suasion in this regard. Because I can always just come to you that I have obligations on my product, maybe in the next 1 year. And I will show you contract to that effect that I'm actually committed to actually deliver so number on a daily basis over a period of time. So the one you have control over is the one you produce as a nation. And that's why I was talking about the 750,000 barrels. So the 750,000 barrels, just as you know, NNPs also have commitment over that based on what they have borrowed. And at the same time, the government cannot sell the whole of that product to only local producers. Let me explain why. If you are seeing from the beginning of the year, we have been seeing more like a drop in the reserve. From over 40 billion, currently we are about 38.2 thereabout. And if we continue in that stride, that, you know, accretion to reserve comes from the sale of crude oil.
Exactly.
So we can't continue to say we will sell Naira for crude. It gets to a level where your reserve is already very down to about 30, and you know what that will mean. It will be back to pressure on Naira. So, and that's one of the reasons why they are trying to bring Dangote back on the table. And don't also forget, if I'm selling 400,000 barrels to Dangote, Nigeria don't consume the whole 400,000 barrels. They are byproducts. And just last week, we heard that Dangote actually exported aviation jet fuel to America. Don't forget that Dangote will earn dollars from that. But the product you are buying is in Naira. So we need to come to the table. Let it be win-win situation. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's, I feel for Dangote because I know that he has actually expended a lot of money on that project. But however, it cannot be at the detriment of Nigeria. And that's one of the reasons why I supported the fact that Dangote is not the only supplier to our market. And why I'm saying this is because it helps to actually put him on his toe. We see a situation whereby marketers came and said, no, we are not buying from you. If you are bringing this in from offshore and bringing it to Nigeria, it will cost us this amount. But what you are selling is far above this amount. And in no time, we found out that Dangote comes and actually adjusts the price to what market value is. And that's one of the reasons why I expect that let there be free market to a great extent, that one way or the other will put Dangote on his toe, pending when Nigeria sorts everything. You know one thing? It's not the day you build a house that you actually earn what you use in building the house. Imagine you spending 200 million to build a house,
but
and you are getting rent.
The rating is not good now, you know.
For
Dangote Industries.
Yeah, I get you. I just feel that, you see, one thing about ratings over time, there are key things on your book that rating agencies are actually complaining about. You understand? But I just feel over a period of time, because one thing is that you need to sort that out. Because if Dangote is looking to actually list on Nigeria on NGS, and at the same time list on London Stock Exchange, these things must be sorted, because the rating agencies have to come back to give you a rating before you can go back into the market.
All right, so in less than 30 seconds, what's the balancing act here?
Yeah, the balancing for me is that the government should bring everybody to the table. Let there be transparency. This is what is happening. This is how much we can actually supply to you on Naira for crude basis. This is how much you can buy if you want to buy dollar for crude. Because what is daily consumption of Nigeria? We can't continue to sell, do we continue to consume up to 300,000 barrels?
Well, I feel we'll have to continue this conversation some other time. Thank you so much. It's been a wholesome conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me on this one.